Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today is going to be a little bit of a different video just because I wanted to start doing more vlogs like I told you guys I was going to start doing. And so today is just sort of going to be more of like a story time type of video in regards to my now 4-year-old, because it's something that I've been wanting to talk about my story on YouTube for a while, but I just haven't really done that yet. So I'm doing it today because I feel like it's really important to give awareness to preemies and just for people to tell their stories so that, you know, other people can resonate and just be aware of the whole situation. Because like I said, this story is about my 4-year-old daughter. Her name is Macie, and she was born a preemie. So I wanted to sort of discuss the story of what my family and I went through in regards to that, because our 3 oldest ones were not preemies. So it was really new to us to go through this and to experience this. But she's now 4, like I've said, and she's extremely healthy. She is functioning and everything. So that's what today's video is going to be about. Anyways, if you're new here, hello and welcome. My name is Hillary. I am a psychic medium, but today, like I said, today's video is not going to be based on spirituality. It is going to be based on my daughter, Macie. So we'll just get right into it. If you do enjoy my content, if you could please hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification so that way you know when I upload new videos. That would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so Macie was born on February 24th, 2017. And she is my 3rd child, like I said. So I have 2 girls and 2 boys. And when I found out I was pregnant with Macie, it was really exciting because, well, obviously whenever someone finds out they're pregnant, it's exciting, but she was, you know, I really wanted another baby. And my first 2, my daughter is here as well, so sorry if you hear her talking. But my first 2 were super easy to conceive. I never had an issue with conceiving them. But when my husband and I were trying for Macie, we tried for, I'm not gonna say it was a long time. It was like probably 6 months, which was, it was a little bit challenging because it was we were, you know, we thought we were old even though we weren't, but I was in my early 30s and my husband was 35. So we were like, we kind of wanted to conceive and get pregnant and we were planning on Macie being our last child, which she isn't, but we were planning on her being our last. So we were sort of in a rush in a way to conceive her, and we felt like we were getting older, even though now that I'm 34 and my husband's almost 40, it's like we weren't old at all, and we're still not really that old. But anyways, and although some days I feel like I'm old, I conceived with her after about 6 months of trying, and the pregnancy was normal. I went to my normal ultrasound appointments, and I went to my normal checkups with my obstetrician, etc. And everything seemed to be fine. The only thing that they were saying was that Macie was implanted low in my cervix. So she was just really low. She was lower than where most babies are, but they really weren't that concerned about it, mostly because I already had 2 healthy pregnancies, 2 healthy full-term babies. Oh, but I do want to say also that I didn't actually have usually when you get pregnant, you get assigned, I'm in Canada, and you get assigned an obstetrician here. And because there is a lack of obstetricians where I am right now, I'm in Ontario, I actually never ended up getting an actual obstetrician. Sorry, I actually was just seeing my family doctor all the way up until I even gave birth to her. I never had an actual obstetrician yet. So I was on the waiting list to get one. I also remember I wanted to get a midwife, but that was also a huge wait, and I never ended up getting one. So I got pregnant with her, and then, like I said, everything was normal, but she was planted very low. And the more time that sort of went on through my pregnancy, I was kind of like, it was a little bit weird because I wasn't gaining that much weight. Although she was growing normally, she was gaining enough weight in all of my appointments because, like I said, I was still seeing my family doctor he was just sort of acting as my obstetrician.
Mommy's belly was big.
No, my belly wasn't that big with Macie at all. I actually only gained 6 pounds with Macie.
What about the picture in your room?
That's Maddox.
Oh.
Yeah, Maddox was a very big baby. He was my biggest baby. He wasn't even that big, but he was still my biggest baby. He weighed, I think, almost 8 pounds, but yeah, Macie was nowhere near that, but we'll get into that. So I was noticing that I wasn't gaining much weight. I'll post pictures throughout the video, so you'll be seeing pictures, but I wasn't, I wasn't getting big at all. But I wasn't that concerned, because like I said, the doctor was saying Macie was super healthy, and I was actually really small in my first pregnancy with my oldest son, Nolan, so I wasn't too worried about it. It just wasn't, I never really thought, there's gonna be a problem with this pregnancy. So what ended up happening was on Family Day that year, because here in Canada, I'm not sure if you guys have Family Day in the States or anywhere else, we have Family Day, which is in early February. So my due date was actually June 6th or 9th. So this Family Day was early in February. So we're going back to Family Day, and we decided to take the kids out to do some fun stuff. There was like a little carnival going on in our little city, so we decided we were going to take them to the carnival and do all that fun stuff. I wasn't really feeling well that morning. I noticed I was feeling kind of off, but when you're pregnant, you aren't always feeling the best, and you have morning sickness, etc. I usually never have morning sickness in my second trimester, which I was in my second trimester at this point, but I was just, I just wasn't feeling good, but I still went out anyways. So we were walking around that day. Oh, and actually, I gotta take you guys back a few weeks before this, actually. So a few weeks before this, I started noticing that I thought I was peeing, but I was actually leaking amniotic fluid, which I honestly thought I was peeing myself, okay? Because it was my third baby. So we know that most people know, or mothers and women know who have had babies, that pregnancy takes a really huge toll on your bladder. So my bladder wasn't already that great from my first two children, but I didn't really have any significant problems. I didn't have bladder problems or anything like that. So I was like, why am I, not able to, I guess, hold my pee in? Kind of weird, but it was just such a tiny, tiny amount. It wasn't that I was just like, maybe I'm just, it's just sort of coming out and I'm not that worried. But right away I made an appointment with my family doctor, and he actually said the same thing. He didn't actually check me. He said that it was just my bladder. So I was going 3 weeks actually prior to this Family Day outing leaking amniotic fluid, which I didn't know until this Family Day, because on Family Day we ended up going out, like I said, with the kids, and we were walking around rides and stuff, and then there was just more amniotic fluid started gushing out. Okay, it wasn't a lot, it was quite a bit more than what I was used to. So we decided to go home, and we went home, and
I was scared.
You were not scared. You don't even really remember. You weren't even that old. We went back to the house, and I checked myself, and I was, unfortunately, sorry, this is TMI, you guys, but I was bleeding. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't, but it was enough to be concerned, because some people do bleed in their pregnancies. A little amount. I never did, so that's why this was super concerning to me. So it was like a blood clot. It was probably about this big. So I panicked. I freaked out. I thought something's wrong. So obviously right away I went into our local hospital, which was just 2 streets down from where we were living at the time. They sort of said, they kind of look at me like this is my first time having a baby type of thing, and I'm just panicking but I'm like, no, listen, this is my third baby, and I know there is something wrong, and there was blood. So right away they took me in, because when you say there's blood, they automatically think, oh, maybe it's just implantation bleeding or something, but they have to take you in. They weren't being really serious about it. They were kind of being like, I was acting like I was being dramatic, which I was, kind of annoyed with it, but whatever. I was just worried about my baby at that time. So they admit me in, and they check me, and I say to her, I think my fluid broke. My amniotic sac broke, because I think I'm leaking amniotic fluid. And the nurse was like, no, because you'd be in a lot more pain. You'd be going into labor and stuff. Anyways, so eventually I waited like 2 hours in the room for finally someone to come and check me, which was the nurse. And she was like, oh my God, your water broke. And I was just sort of like, yeah, no shit. Sorry, pardon my language, but so, they started to get really concerned after that, because I was only 24 weeks gestation at this point. So they were worried that I was going to go into labor. So, my husband and I we're so worried. We're honestly thinking, oh my God, what if she doesn't, what if our baby doesn't make it? So because of the hospital that I was in wasn't able to, if I was to go into labor, they didn't handle babies that little there. So they actually shipped me off to McMaster, which is in Hamilton, where it is a children's hospital. They are absolutely amazing and incredible there. But right away they sent me in an ambulance to the hospital. I was by myself, so I was terrified. I was scared. It was, I didn't know what the hell was going on. So they admit me into the hospital because they know my amniotic water is broke at McMaster. And then they say that I have to pretty much be, bed rest until the baby comes in the hospital, which was extremely hard for me to take in because, my husband and I are raising three other children, including my stepdaughter. My stepdaughter is now almost 19 years old. So I don't talk about her very much because she's going off to university, etc. But her name is Abby. Anyways, we're raising 3 other children. We have a lot of responsibilities. We have a business. We have all these other things going on at home. I know what to do, but obviously we're going to do what's best for our baby. So I had to go on, I had to do what I had to do. So, and the really hard part is that they can't tell you when your baby is going to come. They don't know, but they know because your water broke that the baby could come anytime soon. So what they do is what they did with me is they gave me a bunch of steroids to hold off the labor and then kept me bed rest. And, every day, I was waking up thinking, oh my God, is today going to be the day that my baby is born? And all you can really do in a hospital is think. You're laying there and all you can really do is think. None of us like the unknown as it is. So the unknown to me was extremely scary and, not knowing what was going to happen with my baby. So they were running tests on me 3 times a day, sometimes like 4 or 5 times, ultrasounds. They were, weighing the amniotic fluid because I'm on IV the whole time as well because they want to keep you pumped full of fluid because the more we actually drink, the more fluid we take in, the more our amniotic sac actually fills up with fluid, which obviously is what my baby needed because I was losing water, right? I was leaking. So we were seeing, a social worker and stuff in the hospital that helped people, parents, because this is actually a lot more common, you guys, than I ever thought it was. This happens to a lot of people. And they were explaining to us, what could happen, and they were telling us pretty much that, Macie might not survive. So, every day we were just, my husband is amazing, thank God, because every day he made it his priority to come to the hospital, even though he was working, and bring me food, bring me things, and be there with me, because if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have been as strong as I was. A week after being admitted into the hospital, so at 25 weeks exactly gestation, I ended up giving birth to Macie naturally. And it was a normal natural labor. It was a vaginal birth. Like my other first 2 were also vaginal. And it happened very, very, very fast. Okay. It was, I know what contractions felt like because I had 2 other children. And it was probably like the fastest. It was the fastest birth that I have ever had. It was around like 11 a.m. I was saying to my husband, I think I'm having contractions. So I started timing them. I told the nurse, but I just say, okay, write down. So they gave me a piece of paper. They said, write down, what you think, how long between the contractions are. And if you really feel like you're going to give birth, they told me to go on all 4s and just start, press the emergency button so they can come. And that actually ended up happening. Although Jay, my husband and I were not, we just didn't think, we didn't think it was going to happen that day, but it did. And I went into labor probably around 10 or 11 a.m. That's when I started noticing the contractions around like 7 in the morning when I woke up in the hospital. And then just like normal contractions, they started getting more intense as the hours went by. And I was like, you know what? I think these are contractions. So they right away rushed me down to emergency L&D, labor and delivery. So you go into a different room than regular labor and delivery. So if the baby is going to come, they have to have so much more prepared for the baby, like the incubator and the machines, etc. Because we knew that her lungs were underdeveloped. So her organs are actually developed by almost 25 weeks gestation, but her lungs were not developed. So they were telling us, she's most likely going to be on a CPAP, so a breathing machine, if she comes before 34 weeks gestation. So we were prepared for that, and I remember, you know, them rushing me down, and the pain was so bad that my leg was actually like shaking. And I did give birth to my first son naturally. So I recognize the pain of natural delivery. My daughter had epidural for. I did want an epidural for Nevaeh, or for Macie. Nevaeh is my first daughter, sorry, because I enjoyed the labor much more when I had the epidural, because I was able to focus more on my baby. And I remember with my first child, it was all natural, and it was so painful that I even forgot I was having a baby. So by the time he came, I just wanted to sleep. You know, I was ecstatic that I had my little boy, but anyways, he's now 13, but I wanted an epidural with Macie. I didn't get to have an epidural because she came so fast. The pain was so bad. And it was kind of maddening because my actual OB that was assigned to me in the hospital at the time that I was admitted, she wasn't there. So the people that were there, the nurses and stuff, and the other obstetrician that was there, they were like, are you sure you're in labor? And I'm like, yes, like I'm in so much pain right now, like I'm sure I'm in labor. Anyways, so they checked me, and I actually was only like, I wasn't dilated at all. But I was positive that I was in labor. And so that's why they weren't sure. But they also said they didn't want to check me right away, because it was just such a risky pregnancy that they didn't want to like interfere more with things up there and cause me to go into preterm labor, because we wanted to keep her in there obviously as long as possible to develop. That was the goal. And so anyways, I ended up going into labor half hour after the first time they checked me. When they checked me, I was actually 6 centimeters dilated, maybe like 5 or 6 centimeters, and they were like, oh my god. So they were, at this point, they literally rushed me right to the surgery room, and they put me on this silver, skinny, uncomfortable, it's not like when you actually are in a labor, like a normal labor and delivery room. This was like a slate of steel that I laid on. And I remember the pain was so bad, and the contractions were coming so hard and so fast on top of each other that like I was leaning on the nurse, because they were actually trying to give me an epidural because I wanted one to take the pain away, and I was in so much pain. And I actually remember wanting to bite the nurse because I was in so much pain. She was like, don't bite me. And she was like, you know, I've been bitten before, it happened. And I was like, oh my god, I felt so bad. But the lady giving me the epidural, it turned out she was actually a student, so she couldn't find the right spot. So she was poking me over and over again. She couldn't find the spot to give me the epidural. So I never ended up getting it, because by that time, they tried for probably about 15 minutes to get this epidural in me, and I was in so much pain. The OB that was assigned to me came running in, and she was like, what are you doing? And she started yelling because she was, you know, she looked at the monitor and stuff, and she was like, she's going to give birth any second. You don't have time for an epidural. Lay her on her back. So they laid me on my back, and I was pretty much 10 centimeters dilated, and I gave, you know, my obstetrician was like, you need to push, and I was like, no, I can't, I'm in so much pain. I pushed, and Macie was born around 2:30, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And I remember, you know, because of the situation, she wasn't able to, you know, lay on my chest like a normal, you know, like I wanted. I wasn't able to breastfeed her, and it was very, you know, they did lay her on my chest for, you know, a few seconds, but she needed to be hooked up to the machines right away, especially the breathing machine, because her lungs were underdeveloped. But she was just, she weighed 1 pound 6 ounces when she was born. So she was very, very tiny. She looked like a little see-through pink alien, to be honest. And I love her so much. But you know, I'm going to be inserting pictures so you guys can see. But she was just, she sounded like a cat. Like she cried. She did try to cry, and it sounded like a little meow. But I didn't really get to see her. I just remember looking down and seeing like this little pink see-through fetus, really. But right away, they took her and they put her in silver bags for insulation, because they have to keep them really warm. But anyways, they hooked her up to the breathing machine and everything, and then I was brought back to a room to recover and stuff. Where after that, you know, that day, I went in to see her into the NICU, which is where they keep all the preemie babies in the incubators and stuff. It was, you know, when I seen her, I broke out, bawling my eyes out, and it was just, you know, out of relief that she was there and she was alive, and I was amazed because she was so tiny. And I remember her diapers were like the diapers were about this big. I wish I had one to show you guys because I know we kept a couple, but they were so small that too small for like a small sized doll, and they were actually too big on her. And I was just amazed by that. She's, you know, she's a fighter. She's a complete fighter, and I knew that the whole time. You know, I was worried and scared, obviously, for my baby. I knew that she was going to make it. I remember when I was pregnant, just getting this confirmation from her, you know, from her soul, you know, it's okay, Mom. I'm gonna be okay. And I told everyone, I know she's gonna make it. I stayed in the NICU for about 6 months after I gave birth to her. So my husband and I went up to the McMaster hospital every day, pumping my milk at home because I couldn't breastfeed her. So I was pumping my milk at home to bring to her in the hospital. It was just so stressful, and every day we went up there to be with her, and we would hold her. We were allowed to hold her because skin on skin, kangaroo. They call it kangaroo care, is really, really important for her bonding, for her health, for everything. It's really important for her to be, you know, so my husband and I both do skin to skin contact with her, but you know, it was hard because we couldn't see her face. The machine was pretty much like the size of her face. We didn't even know what she looked like. You know, but to me, she was beautiful because she's my baby. And, you know, she had a lot of dark hair, which is weird because my first 2 older ones are born with my oldest one, he's really, really blonde. Like, my oldest daughter, she does have dark hair now, but she wasn't really born with a lot of hair either. But Macie had a lot of hair. So I thought that was really cool to see as a mother, you know, because they're all so different. But eventually, as time went on, you know, you go up there every day and you're wondering, is my baby gonna make it? And it's really, really hard to see your child suffering. You know, it's really hard to see them because they would stop breathing sometimes. That's because they couldn't breathe. Her lungs were not developed, right? So it would show on the machine, and the doctors would come running over and have to readjust things. And it was constant trial and error of taking after a couple months of her being there, see if she could breathe on her own. So she would breathe on her own for a couple of days, but then they get tired. Their lungs get really tired because they're underdeveloped. So then they put the machine back on. Go through a milestone. We would take 1 step ahead, then it was like 2 steps back. So it was extremely disheartening. So stressful every day, you know, not knowing whether or not your baby is going to be okay, and being at home and worrying about my infant because I wanted to be with her all the time. All the time. I just wanted to be holding her all the time. We spent a lot of time at the hospital, as much as we could. You know, we're really thankful for our parents. That my mother's passed away now, but at the time she was super helpful watching our other children, and it was every day just, you know, when is she gonna come home? I just want her to come home. You know, we had her nursery ready, and it was just it was really tough. I just want to say that, you know, Macie actually taught me so much about life. She doesn't know it yet because she's only 4, even though I tell her all the time, but she taught me so much about patience. I realized how impatient I actually was when, you know, I was waiting for her to come home, when I was waiting for her to get off the breathing machine, and, you know, you have to go through the whole feeding issue because you have to pretty much teach them. They're not like, because when they're first born, they have the natural instinct to suck, like rooting. Well, they don't, you have to teach them that when they come that early. So it was, you know, they don't let you go home from the hospital until they know your baby is eating right and properly, which is great, I think. So it's very hard for infants, though, especially preemies that are born that early, to learn how to eat and swallow. It's the swallowing that's really, really hard for them to do because of their lungs and because just everything that they've been through. And there's a constant challenge of wondering whether or not, you know, there's so many things that can happen when they're born that early. There's brain bleeds, there's cerebral palsy. So Jay and I and the doctors were so worried that she's going to develop these things. And infections are extremely, extremely common as well, which is why every time you enter the NICU, you have to scrub, you know, you have to scrub from your whole hands all the way to your arm, and you have to stand there scrubbing for at least 5 minutes every time before you walk into the NICU, because they're, you know, these babies are so fragile and they can get infections and die because they're so weak, right? So that was a constant worry. That was one of the main things, actually, that they said we had to be worried about was infections. Even from the, you know, even though they're super sterile in there, and like, even from like the tubes and stuff, it's common for preemies to get infections from their IV and things like that and die from them. So Macie did actually develop a couple infections. Also had a feeding tube too, as well, obviously, because she wasn't, you know, she wasn't eating right away as soon as she got put into the NICU. So she had a feeding tube for a long time before we actually started practicing her actually. You know, she was old enough to, you know, start eating on her own with a bottle and stuff. But anyways, and that didn't happen to the very end, like probably a month before she was actually released and came home with us. Because, you know, our babies actually don't develop the sucking reflex or the rooting reflex until, you know, really close to when they're born. So she didn't have that yet. It was really challenging because, you know, we didn't know she was going to fight it off, but she did. She ended up fighting off 2 really big infections, and she's just such a fighter. She didn't end up with anything wrong with her. We are extremely blessed. We are so thankful. And she's almost 4 with no disabilities, nothing. She's got no breathing problems, because that was also a main concern, was her coming home with possibly like a breathing machine. We call her Miracle Macie because she is our Miracle Macie. And it was really, really hard, but we made it through, and she is a happy, healthy, strong 4-year-old. And I wanted to tell you guys, because I was in meditation last night and my spirit guides are telling me, you know, you have lots of stories to tell that you probably should tell to bring awareness to, because I talked to you guys about how we go through experiences for a reason. And I do feel like I should be telling these stories to you guys. And if this brings any sort of comfort to other mothers, fathers, and families that are going through the same thing, I know it will help them. Because I want you guys to know, if you're watching this and you're going through this, that I obviously know how hard it is, but miracles happen. And it's very, you know, it is 50-50 chance that if your baby is born at 25 weeks gestation, to the day actually, that they have a 50-50 chance of surviving. If it's before 25 weeks, from what I remember them telling me anyways, then the chances go less and less and less of them surviving. But, you know, miracles happen every day, and don't lose hope. And you're not alone in this. But yeah, that's the story, you guys, of my little girl Macie. If you have any questions, you can obviously comment below in the comment section, and I will answer them. But I'm going to be also recording another video today for you guys on another case that I am doing. I almost have it ready, so I'm probably going to record it tomorrow. It's a little boy that went missing quite a while ago, actually. So I'm almost done doing that case, and I'll upload it tomorrow. But I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!